Dr. Kim Hyun sat quietly at her desk in the vast library of Kepler 9 space station. The room was huge, with tall shelves reaching up to the ceiling. Thousands of books, data chips, and screens filled every corner. This was her world. She had spent 15 years taking care of humanity's biggest collection of knowledge in deep space. The library was peaceful today, just like every other day. Only the soft hum of computers and air systems broke the silence. Kim Hyun liked it this way. She was reading an old book about ancient Korean poetry when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. The sound was so loud it hurt her ears. She looked up from her book and sighed. The alarms meant only one thing. Danger was coming to their small research station. Commander Lee Tae ran into the library. His face was white with fear. Sweat dripped from his forehead, even though the station was always cool. He was breathing hard like he had been running for a long time. "Hyun, we have a big problem," he shouted over the noise of the alarms. The Vortak Armada just appeared outside our station. 12 huge warships and hundreds of smaller fighters. They want us to give up right now, or they will destroy us all. Kim Hyun slowly closed her book and placed it carefully on the desk. She had heard stories about the Vortak Empire. They were known across the galaxy as the most dangerous aliens anyone had ever seen. They traveled from star to star, conquering every world they found. No one had ever stopped them. Entire civilizations had disappeared when the Vortak came to visit. "How many people do we have on the station?" she asked in a calm voice. "Only 60, and most of them are scientists and librarians like you. We have just 5 security guards with basic weapons. Hyun, their smallest ship has more firepower than our entire station." Lee Tae was shaking now. He had been a space commander for 20 years, but he had never faced anything like this. The Vortak were legends of terror. Parents told their children scary stories about them. Grown soldiers had nightmares about meeting them in battle. Kim Hyun stood up slowly and walked the big window that showed the space outside. She could see the Vortak ships in the distance. They looked like huge metal monsters floating in the darkness. Each one was 10 times bigger than their research station. Their dark hulls had strange symbols that seemed to glow with evil light. "What do they want exactly?" she asked. "Everything. They want all our research, all our technology, all our knowledge about human military secrets. Then they want us to become their slaves, or die. Hyun, we need to call for help right now. How long would it take for human military ships to reach us?" Lee Tae's shoulders dropped. 3 weeks at the fastest speed. We are too far from any human worlds. We are completely alone out here. Kim Hyun nodded and walked back to her desk. She turned on her computer and started typing. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, like she was playing a piano. "What are you doing? We need to run away or fight or something." Lee Tae said, "I am going to send a message to the Vortak commander," she said, without looking up from her screen. "A message? What kind of message?" "A polite request for more time." Lee Tae thought she had gone crazy. "More time? They will laugh at us and then blow us up." Kim Hyun finished typing and sent her message. Then she looked at Lee Tae with a small smile. "Commander, please trust me. I have an idea, but I need time to make it work. Send this message to their leader." The message was very simple and polite. It said that the head librarian of Kepler 9 station requested a delay of 24 hours to properly organize and prepare all materials for transfer. She explained that their library system was very complex and needed time to shut down safely. Lee Tae read the message and stared at her. "You want to ask the most dangerous aliens in the galaxy to wait because you need to organize your books?" "Yes. They will think we are making fun of them. Maybe. Or maybe they will be curious about why we are so calm." Lee Tae sent the message because he did not know what else to do. They waited for an answer. Everyone on the station held their breath. Outside the window, the Vortak ships moved closer like huge sharks swimming through space. Then something amazing happened. A reply came back. The voice was deep and scary, like rocks grinding together. It spoke in perfect human language, but with a strange accent. "This is General Thox of the Vortak Armada. Your request is unusual. No species has ever asked us to wait for administrative reasons. You have 24 hours to prepare your surrender. Do not try to run away or call for help. We will be watching you." The communication ended. Lee Tae looked at Kim Hyun with surprise and fear. It worked. But now what? In 24 hours, they will still destroy us if we do not give them what they want. Kim Hyun was already back at her computer, typing faster than before. Now I get to work. "Commander, please make sure no one disturbs me for the next 24 hours. I have a library to weaponize." Weaponize? What does that mean? But Kim Hyun was already lost in her work, her fingers flying across multiple keyboards at once. She had bought them time, but time was only useful if she could figure out how to use it. Kim Hyun worked through the night without stopping. Her fingers moved across 3 different keyboards at the same time. Coffee cups piled up on her desk, but she did not have time to clean them. The library was dark, except for the blue light from her computer screens. Her assistant, Park Jin, came to check on her every few hours. He was a young man who loved books almost as much as she did. But tonight, he looked worried and scared. "What are you doing exactly?" he asked, looking at all the code moving across her screens. "It looks like you are rebuilding our entire computer system." Kim Hyun did not look away from her work. "That is exactly what I am doing, but not the way you think. I am not making our computers stronger. I am making them more confusing." Confusing? Why would we want to confuse our own computers? Because the Vorthack will try to break into our systems to steal our information. When they do, I want them to find something they cannot understand. Park Jin watched her work for a few minutes. She was doing things with the computer code that he had never seen before. She was taking normal files and wrapping them in layers of puzzles and riddles. "Look at this," she said, pointing to one of her screens. "This used to be a simple file about human history. Now watch what happens when someone tries to open it." She clicked on the file. Instead of showing history facts, the screen filled with a strange question. What is the sound of one hand clapping? Below the question were thousands of possible answers, but each answer led to more questions. "I do not understand," Park Jin said. "That is the point. The Vorthack are very logical. They think in straight lines. They see a problem. They find a solution. They move on. But what happens when the problem has no real answer?" Kim Hyun showed him another file. This one looked like it contained weapons information, but when opened, it started asking, "If a tree falls in a forest and no one hears it, does it make a sound?" The file would not close until someone answered a question, but every answer led to 10 more questions. "These are old riddles from Earth philosophy," she explained. "Humans have been thinking about these questions for thousands of years. Some have no perfect answer. The Vorthack have never met questions like these." Park Jin was starting to understand. So when they try to steal our secrets, they will get trapped trying to solve unsolvable puzzles. Their logical minds will not be able to move forward until they understand the questions, but the questions cannot be fully understood. Kim Hyun worked faster now. She was taking every important file in their system and hiding it inside layers of human philosophy, art, and poetry. A file about spaceship engines became wrapped in discussions about the meaning of love. Medical research was hidden behind questions about what makes a person truly alive. But what if they just ignore the questions and try to force their way through? Park Jin asked. Then they meet the second level of protection. Kim Hyun switched to another screen. "I am creating loops in the system. If they try to skip the philosophical questions, the computer will start showing the same information over and over again, but slightly different each time." She demonstrated by trying to force past one of her own puzzles. The screen immediately began showing the same paragraph about human culture, but each time it appeared, one word was different. After reading it 50 times, Park Jin felt dizzy and confused. "The human brain can handle this because we understand that something is wrong," Kim Hyun explained. "But the Vorthack think very differently. Their minds will try to find a pattern and understand why the information keeps changing. They will not be able to stop trying to solve it." As the hours passed, Kim Hyun built more and more traps in their computer system. She created files that would ask the reader to count all the stars in the galaxy before continuing. She made programs that required someone to write a poem about sadness before accessing scientific data. She even created a section that would only open if someone could explain why humans cry when they are happy. This is incredible, Park Jin said as he watched her work. But will it really stop them? The Vorthak have conquered hundreds of worlds. They must be very smart. They are smart, but they are smart in only one way, Kim Hyun replied. They solve problems by using force and logic. They have never had to deal with problems that cannot be solved by thinking harder or fighting stronger. By morning, Kim Hyun had transformed their simple research database into the most complex puzzle ever created. Every piece of information was hidden behind layers of human questions, riddles, and paradoxes. The system looked normal from the outside, but inside it was like a maze made of thoughts and ideas. "There!" she said, leaning back in her chair for the first time in 18 hours. "Now, when they try to steal our secrets, they will find something much more dangerous than weapons or technology." "What will they find?" Park Jin asked. Kim Hyun smiled for the first time since the Vorthak ships had arrived. "They will find the human mind. And the human mind is full of questions that have been keeping us awake at night for thousands of years." Outside the library windows, the Vorthak ships moved closer to the station. But inside, Kim Hyun had built a fortress made not of metal and weapons, but of ideas and wondering thoughts. Soon, the most logical species in the galaxy would learn what it felt like to be confused. The 24 hours were almost over. Kim Hyun sat in the communication room with Commander Lee Tae. Her trap was ready, but now came the hardest part. She had to make the Vorthak want to steal their information. The big screen in front of them flickered to life. A terrifying face appeared, General Thox of the Vorthak Armada. His skin was dark gray like old metal. He had 4 red eyes that glowed like fire. Sharp teeth filled his mouth. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks crushing together. "Human Librarian, your time is finished. You will now give us all your military secrets and technology. If you refuse, we will destroy your station and everyone on it." Kim Hyun looked directly at the alien general. Her voice was calm and polite, like she was talking to a neighbor. "Of course, General Thox. I have prepared everything you requested. I am sending you our most secret military information right now." Lee Tae stared at her in shock. She was really going to give their secrets to the enemy? But Kim Hyun winked at him when the alien could not see. "I should warn you," she continued talking to General Thox. "Our military strategies are very different from other species. They may seem strange at first, but they are the reason humans have survived so long in this dangerous galaxy." General Thox's 4 eyes burned brighter. "Send the information immediately." Kim Hyun pressed a button on her computer. Files started transferring to the Vorthak ships. But these were not real military secrets. She was sending them human literature, philosophy, and art, all disguised to look like battle plans and war strategies. The first file was called Advanced Combat Psychology Manual, but it was really Shakespeare's play Hamlet, reformatted to look like a military document. She had added fake technical words and made it seem like a guide for confusing enemy soldiers. The second file was labeled Strategic Leadership in Impossible Situations. This was actually ancient Chinese military philosophy from Sun Tzu, mixed with Korean war poems and Buddhist teachings about inner peace. She made it look like a secret training program for human commanders. The third file was titled Psychological Warfare, Breaking Enemy Will. Inside was a collection of human music, poetry, and stories about love, death, dreams, and hope. She presented it as a manual for destroying enemy morale through emotional manipulation. General Thox looked satisfied as the files downloaded to his ship. "These will be analyzed immediately. If you have tried to trick us human, your death will be very slow." "I would never trick someone as intelligent as you, General," Kim Hyun said with a straight face. After the communication ended, Lee Tae grabbed her arm. "What did you just do? Those were not military secrets." "Exactly. But the Vorthak do not know that. They will spend days trying to understand why Hamlet's famous question, to be or not to be, is listed as an advanced military strategy." Within hours, Kim Hyun's plan began to work. She could monitor the Vorthack communications because their signals were very strong. What she heard made her smile. Vorthack military analysts were arguing with each other about the human files. Some thought to be or not to be, that is the question, was a code for choosing between attack and retreat. Others believed it was instructions for psychological warfare against enemy leaders. One Vorthack officer was convinced that Romeo and Juliet was a detailed report about a human civil war. He spent hours trying to figure out why the military commanders Romeo and Juliet had killed themselves instead of fighting their enemies. Another group of aliens was studying human love songs, thinking they were coded battle orders. They could not understand why human warriors kept singing about broken hearts and lonely nights. Some Vorthack analysts began to think that humans were the most emotionally dangerous species in the galaxy. The confusion grew worse when they found Sun Tzu's teachings mixed with Korean meditation techniques. The Vorthack spent days trying to understand sentences like, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never lose a battle. They had never thought about knowing themselves before. They only knew how to follow orders and fight. Kim Hyun listened to their communications and heard something amazing happening. The Vorthack officers were starting to argue about what the human materials meant. For the first time in their history, they were having different opinions about the same information. Listen to this, she told Park Jin, playing a recorded Vorthack conversation. General Fox's second-in-command thinks that human poetry about sadness is actually a weapon for making enemies too sad to fight. But his third-in-command believes it is a training method for making human soldiers stronger by teaching them about pain. They are both completely wrong, Park Jin said. Yes, but that is not the important part. The important part is that they are disagreeing with each other. The Vorthack never disagree. They always think the same way about everything. But now they are confused, and confusion makes people think in different directions. By the end of the second day, the Vorthack fleet was in chaos. Different ships had different theories about human military strategy. Some thought humans were masters of emotional warfare. Others believed humans were so advanced that their weapons were invisible and made of pure thought. The best part was that the more they studied the human files, the more confused they became. Each poem led to new questions. Every story made them wonder about things they had never considered before. Kim Hyun had done something no military force had ever accomplished. She had made the most organized army in the galaxy start thinking for themselves. 3 days after Kim Hyun sent the disguised files, something incredible began to happen across the Vorthack Empire. The confusion she had planted in General Fox's fleet was spreading like a fire through their entire civilization. The Vorthack had always been connected through a special communication network that linked every ship, every base, and every planet in their empire. When one Vorthack learned something, they could share it instantly with billions of others. This network had made them the strongest force in the galaxy because they could all think and act as one mind. But now this strength became their greatest weakness. Kim Hyun sat in her library monitoring the alien communications. What she heard made her both excited and worried. Her information virus was working better than she had ever hoped. Park Jin, listen to this, she said, playing a recording from a Vorthack military base 3 star systems away. The voice was confused and uncertain. Command Base 7 reporting unusual behavior in Unit 42. The soldiers are asking questions about their orders instead of following them immediately. They want to know why we are attacking the mining colony on Zirian Prime. They say the humans' military files make them wonder if there are better ways to get what we need. Kim Hyun switched to another communication channel. This one was from a Vorthack warship near the edge of their territory. Admiral Corks, the Central Command. My crew has been studying the human strategic documents for analysis, but now they are acting strangely. Yesterday, 3 of my officers asked me what I think about when I am alone. Today, my weapons specialist created some kind of artistic arrangement using metal scraps. He says he was inspired by human creative warfare techniques. All across the galaxy, similar reports were coming in. Vorthack soldiers who had spent their entire lives following orders without question were suddenly asking why. They were reading human poetry and trying to understand what it meant. They were looking at paintings and wondering why humans created images that served no military purpose. The most amazing change was happening on conquered worlds. Vordak occupation forces that had been ruthless and cruel for years were beginning to show mercy to their prisoners. Some had even released entire groups of slaves after reading human stories about freedom and kindness. Park Jin looked worried as he listened to the reports. Kim Hyun, what if this goes too far? What if we destroy their entire empire? I do not think we will destroy them, she replied. I think we are freeing them. On General Fox's flagship, chaos was spreading through every level of command. The general himself was locked in his private quarters, surrounded by printouts of human philosophy and literature. He had not eaten or slept in 2 days. He kept reading the same passages over and over, trying to understand what they meant. His second-in-command, Colonel Vex, knocked on his door every few hours. General, the fleet is waiting for orders. What should we do with the human station? But General Fox could not answer. He was trapped in a mental loop created by a simple human question he had found in their files. What is the purpose of existence? The Vordak had never asked this question before. They existed to conquer and expand their empire. That had always been enough. But now, this human question made him wonder if there might be other reasons to exist. The breakdown in command structure was happening everywhere. Vordak officers who had always agreed about everything were now having heated debates about the meaning of human art and music. Some thought human creativity was a sign of mental weakness. Others believed it showed that humans had discovered secrets about life that the Vordak had missed. Kim Hyun received a report that made her laugh out loud. On the Vordak homeworld, their Supreme Council was having its first disagreement in over 1,000 years. Half the council members wanted to study human culture more deeply to understand their advanced psychological weapons. The other half wanted to destroy all human knowledge before it infected more of their people. But it was already too late. The infection of independent thinking was spreading faster than they could control it. Vordak citizens on hundreds of worlds were experiencing emotions and thoughts they had never felt before. Some Vordak were writing primitive poetry about their feelings. Others were asking questions about whether their empire's endless wars were really necessary. A few were even trying to create art and music, copying the human examples they had seen. The most dramatic change was in their treatment of other species. For the first time in their history, Vordak soldiers were refusing orders to execute prisoners. Some were even helping rebuild the cities they had destroyed, saying they wanted to understand the human concept of making things better instead of making things worse. Lee Tae found Kim Hyun in the library, still monitoring the communications. The entire Vordak Empire is falling apart, he said with amazement. Their military is confused, their government is arguing, and their people are rebelling. How did you know this would happen? Kim Hyun looked up from her screens with a tired but satisfied smile. Because I understood something about them that they did not understand about themselves. They were not evil. They were just limited. They had never learned to think beyond conquest and control. But every intelligent species has the ability to grow and change, even the Vordak. So what happens now? Now we wait and see what they choose to become. 1 week after Kim Hyun had sent her information virus into the Vordak network, something happened that no one expected. The alarms on Kepler 9 station began ringing again, but this time they were different. Instead of the harsh warning sounds, they were playing a soft melody. Kim Hyun looked up from her desk, where she was quietly sorting returned books. Through the library windows, she could see a single Vordak transport ship approaching the station. It was much smaller than the warships that had threatened them before, and it was flying slowly with its weapons powered down. Commander Lee Tae rushed into the library, but he was not panicking like before. He looked confused and curious instead of afraid. Kim Hyun, General Fox is requesting permission to come aboard the station. Alone. He says he wants to talk to you personally. He also says his fleet will not attack us no matter what we decide. Kim Hyun closed the book she was reading and stood up. Tell him he can come, but ask him to meet me here in the library. In the library? Should we not meet in the command center or conference room? No. If he wants to understand what happened to his empire, he needs to see where it all began. An hour later, General Fox walked into the library. But he was not the same terrifying alien who had threatened them a week ago. He moved slowly and carefully, like someone who was seeing the world for the first time. His 4 red eyes were no longer burning with anger. Instead, they looked around the library with something that seemed like wonder. He was much taller than Kim Hyun, but he sat down in a chair across from her desk like a student visiting a teacher. When he spoke, his voice was still deep and rough, but was quiet and uncertain. "Human Kim Hyun," he said, struggling with words that were new to him. "I have come to ask you something that I have never asked anyone before. Why did you not destroy us when you had the chance?" Kim Hyun looked at him with interest. This was not the question she had expected. "What do you mean?" "Your information weapon was more powerful than any military force we have ever faced. You could have driven my people insane or made us destroy ourselves. Instead, you gave us something I do not have words for. You gave us the ability to think new thoughts. Why would you help your enemies?" Kim Hyun smiled gently. "Because you were never really my enemies. You were just people who had never learned that there were other ways to live." General Thox was quiet for a long time, thinking about her words. "My empire is broken now. My soldiers refuse to follow orders that they think are wrong. My officers spend their time creating art instead of planning attacks. Our conquered worlds are rebelling because our forces will no longer fight to keep them enslaved." "And how does that make you feel?" The general stared at her. "Feel? That is a human word I am still learning to understand. Before your virus infected our network, I never felt anything. I only followed the purpose I was created for, to expand our empire and destroy our enemies. But now," he paused and looked around the library again. "Now I wake up every morning and wonder what the day will bring. I look at the stars and think they are beautiful instead of just seeing targets to conquer. Yesterday, I listened to one of my officers singing a song she created, and something inside me changed. Is this what you humans call happiness?" Kim Hyun nodded. "That sounds like happiness to me. But I still do not understand why you chose to change us instead of destroying us. We came here to take everything from you and kill you. We have done the same thing to hundreds of other species." Kim Hyun stood up and walked to one of her bookshelves. She pulled out an old, worn book and handed it to the general. "This book contains stories about humans who were once as cruel and destructive as your people. But they learned to change. They learned to build instead of destroy, to help instead of hurt." General Thox held the book carefully, like it might break in his large hands. "You believe we can change the same way? I believe every intelligent species has the potential for growth. The question is whether you want to grow or stay the same." The general was quiet again, reading the first page of the book. "My people are confused and frightened. They do not know how to live without conquest and war. Many are asking me what they should do now. What do you want to tell them?" "I want to tell them that there are other ways to be strong. I want to teach them what I have learned from your files, that creating something beautiful is harder than destroying something, but it feels much better. I want to show them worlds where different species work together instead of fighting." Kim Hyun sat back down at her desk. "Then that is what you should do." General Thox stood up slowly, still holding the book. "The Vorthak fleet will leave the system today, but we are not retreating in defeat. We are leaving as students who have much to learn." "Where will you go?" "Back to our home worlds, to teach our people what we have discovered. It will take many years, maybe many generations, to change the way we think, but I believe it is possible now." As he reached the library door, General Thox turned back to look at Kim Hyun one last time. "Thank you for showing us that there is more to existence than conquest." Kim Hyun watched through her window as the Vorthak transport ship left the station and rejoined the fleet in space. One by one, the massive warships turned away from Kepler 9 and jumped into hyperspace, heading home to begin the long process of learning to live differently. Commander Lee Tae found her still watching the empty space where the fleet had been. "So what happens now?" Kim Hyun picked up another book and opened it to the first page. "Now we wait and see what kind of civilization they choose to build. And we keep our library ready for the next species that needs to learn there are better ways to live than through fear and violence." She had saved humanity not with weapons or technology, but by doing what librarians had always done, sharing knowledge with those who needed it most, even when those people had come to destroy them.